So a point that I try to make in this book is that the equation of government with inefficient is inappropriate. It depends on the context. In this context, actually, it's turning out now that the membership in the Communist Party of China, the one country in the world that, you can't imagine a less communist country in the sense of communism's original meaning. But the membership in the Communist Party of China has gone from roughly 10 million 10 years ago to 80 million today. So 80 million members, think about that. It's more than the population of most South American countries, I think, or equal to that. 80 million members of the Communist Party of China. Right? Why is this? And this, let me just say this and then stop after this. But this tells you a little bit about the challenge that China will face going forward. The bargain that the Communist Party of China struck post-1978 when it opened the country up with the citizenry was, you guys should shut up when we don't give you your personal rights. In return, we will make sure your tummies are full. Okay? And we will do it our way. And we will deliver on that promise. And I think it's very reasonable that the population took up that promise and said, this is perfect, because everybody's first concern is to make sure they can feed themselves and their families. Right? When that promise was fulfilled, this next bargain that the Communist Party offered was, we will give you clothes and a roof over your head, but you need to shut up. Don't protest. That bargain was met. And then they promised, we will give you TVs and cars, and bicycles and mopeds and motorcycles, and clean roads and trees on the roads. And that promise has been met on the Eastern Seaboard, not on the rest. And that has curtailed dissent. Not completely. Today, the number of protests in China, the official count of violent protests in China today is 85,000. The Chinese Ministry of State, it has some long, complicated name that I can't remember now. The Ministry of State, Internal State Security, publishes on its website that there were 85,000 violent protests in the major cities in China. The actual number, I don't know. I'd bet is more like 500,000, something like that. So they haven't been able to contain opposition to the idea that personal freedoms would be violated as much as they used to. But now the question becomes, as we go forward, what do we promise? What can we promise now? We've given them all the material goods that are possible. And here's the brilliance of the party. What the party has said is, we can't promise you anything more, but guess what? If you're really upset, come become part of the party. Okay? Or if you're really successful, proactively, be a part of the party. Come inside the tent. And so now you have private entrepreneurs who are the most coveted members of the Communist Party of China. Right? And the idea is very much that once we co-opt you, then you're not going to protest because you're part of us. And the question in my mind is, what races ahead faster? The material and psychological and social and normal impulses of most human beings to be free, or the party's drive to get more and more people within its tent? That's the open question for whether China sort of capsizes or doesn't capsize. But as a net result, that it's people who are members of the party who are often behind the best enterprises, and the idea that the government is the entrepreneur in China. The government is the entrepreneur. It is the only entrepreneur. You cannot be an entrepreneur of any consequence without being part of the government in China. And the opposite is true in India. India is just a noisier version of the United States. You stay as far away from the government as you can if you really want to be an entrepreneur.